Jerry DePaula, Pittsburgh Tribune Review, covers Pitt Panthers football and joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Jerry, thanks for your time. Pitt quietly having a nice little start to the year, but all the attention, and we're on 365 Sports on YouTube, and we have a lot of Pitt Panthers fans that come on the show and text us and chat with us on your quarterback in Pickett. How much fun has that attention been, and is it just going to get even better?
You mean Kenny Heisman?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, not Pickett. Excuse me for mispronouncing his last name.
Yeah. It's interesting that, Patnarduzzis brought that up after the Georgia Tech game because, Pat is usually laid back in his quotes and he doesn't like to put a lot of pressure on players. But Kenny Pickett is a special player. He really is. He's been around since the 2017 season when he was a freshman and he upset number 2 Miami in the last game of the season on a team that ended up 5-7. And then he sort of leveled off a little bit in 18 and 19, got a little bit better last year. But he decided to come back this year, and he could have gone to the NFL. But he was smart enough. He asked a lot of good people what they thought about his NFL chances. One of the people he asked was a guy named Peyton Manning, because Kenny has gone to his quarterback camp every year that Eli and Peyton run every year. He became good friends with Peyton. He asked him, he said, "What do you hear from the NFL about me playing getting drafted in 2021?" And he said, "Well, it's better off going back to school." That's all he had to hear, and he came back to school, and he's having a great season. And it's all because he's has a great rapport with his wide receivers. This summer, he spent tons and tons of time outside by themselves with Jordan Addison and Taser Mack. There's 2 guys who were big play wide receivers, reliable ball catchers, and experienced guys too. Addison is a sophomore, had a great one of the top freshman wide receivers in the country. He's an acrobatic guy that likes to go up and get those 50-50 balls. So with Kenny Pickett in the offense, they're flying high, scoring a lot of points, lead the nation in points per game, 52 points. And it seems to me that if the defense can come along, they should do okay. Maybe even win the ACC.
You mentioned the ACC. It's kind of a wreck this year and wide open for the first time in a while. Outside of that offense and Kenny Pickett, what's allowed Pitt to be in this position to jump on the opportunity to win a league that's wide open for the first time in a decade?
Well, I'll tell you, Kenny Pickett, the wide receivers have been good. The X factor, I think, this year with the team on offense is the tight end Lucas Kroll, who transferred from Florida last year. And he was on the team last year, but got injured early in the season and missed the entire season except for maybe one game. He transferred from Florida because Kyle Pitts was there. And Kyle Pitts was getting all the attention and getting all the catches. And he decided to come to Pitt and improve his career, do better, get a chance to get better exposure, play a lot. And then this poor guy gets hurt. But this year, he's 6'7", 6'7", 260-some pounds. A former fireball, he's a pitcher, and for his junior college, early in his career. But he's a great weapon in the red zone, and right down to the goal line, he can post up, the smaller defensive backs and make a lot of catches, and he's already done that this year, and that's been the key. The defense hasn't really come through like Patnarduzzis wants it to. They gave up 44 points against Western Michigan in a game they really should have won. And they've given up some points and some yards in some other games that they've won. And the other thing about Pitt is maybe holding them back. They're not ranked. They really haven't beaten anybody yet. I mean, there's a lot of excitement around the team, but they beat a Tennessee team that is probably middle of the pack or less, even lower in the SEC. And they beat Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech had already beaten North Carolina, but North Carolina's proven to be almost a fraud team. And they almost beat Clemson, but Clemson, is certainly not what it used to be. But Pitt has a big game coming up. They're off tomorrow, but they got Virginia Tech, Clemson, and Miami back to back. Then they play Duke. Then they got North Carolina. If they can end up 4-1 through that stretch, there's a chance they'll be ranked. There's a really good chance that they'll be able to win the Coastal, go to the championship game for the second time in Patnarduzzis' career.
I remember, speaking of Patnarduzzis, when he was the DC at Michigan State and Baylor played them in the Cotton Bowl, which ended up being a crazy, crazy football game. Then Narduzzi's defense won for them there at the end. But what's it been like to see him as head coach over the last few years? How's the program shaped up and shifted, and his time there? How have the fans taken to the direction that he's taken them?
Well, there was a lot of excitement early. You know, they were 8-5 and 8-5 this first season, which for Pitt is really good. But then they leveled off, and they kind of underachieved a little bit until this year. And even this year, they're only 4-1. This was 7 games up in the year, so you don't know what's going to happen from here. With that offense, they should do well. But a lot of fans have been, understandably a little bit upset with not the direction of the program, but the way the program is not winning enough games. They had a 5-7 season there a few years ago, and even when they won the ACC Coastal and played Clemson in the championship game in 2018, you ended up at season 7-7. There's been a lot of mediocrity around that Pitt program. That was before Narduzzi got here, and now that Narduzzi has been here for 6 years, pretty much the same. Maybe this year's different though. Pitt. One stat that a lot of Pitt fans don't want to hear: a Pitt team has lost at least 3 games every season since 1982. I think in 1981 was the last time they lost less than 3 games in a season. 11-1, 3 consecutive years, 79, 80, and 81. And after that, they've not had a season where they lost less than 3 games since then. And they've only won 10 games once. That was in 2009, and needed a full game to get that. So, Pitt fans have been upset that Pitt is the kind of team that sort of brings you up and then lets you down. They get you all excited with a couple wins early in the season when the schedule's not as difficult. They beat Penn State a few years ago in the first game of the season, 2016. They beat Clemson later that season, in an upset down in Death Valley. But that was just an average year. That was that year was like 8-5, I think it was. And it's nice, but Pitt fans want more. And now with Pickett back for his 5th year at quarterback. You have experienced quarterback. You have experienced wide receivers. You have a defense with some talent that needs to get better, and I think will get better as the season moves on. There's a chance to maybe get that double-digit victory total this year for the first time in a long time.
Jerry DePaula, Pittsburgh Tribune Review, talking Pitt Panthers, and also Kenny Pickett. And you mentioned 1982. They had a guy named Dan Marino back then when you were talking about the 81 or 82. He was the quarterback back then, the last time they had less than 3 losses. Has Pickett had any kind of communication with Marino or Matt Cavanaugh, Alex Van Pelt, any of the former Pittsburgh quarterbacks? Have they said much?
I don't think he really has any personal contact with those 3 guys. One thing I will say is that he's going to pass Alex Van Pelt. He's already passed Marino as the number 2 all-time passer for a guard in Pitt history. And Alex Van Pelt, who I believe is the offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns right now, he's going to pass him before the end of the season. So he's going to set, by the time it's all said and done, he's going to set a lot of records this Pitt. Yardage. How much is this? The season's having so far 19 touchdowns and only 1 interception, and that's the key. He can be careful with the football and don't turn it over. There's been some bad interceptions in previous years that have sort of held this team back in certain games. And if they can not have those turnovers like they usually have when things go bad, they have a chance this year. And the Pitt has a great tradition of winning football. As you said, going back to Dan Marino and Tony Dorsey and Johnny Majors. But my goodness, that was almost 50 years ago in some cases. This is 2021. I think Patnarduzzis wants to make his own this week, and he has a chance to do it this year.
I'm glad you brought up the 19-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, because he had 13-9 last year, 13-9 the year before. Right. So he really has. That's an amazing jump one way and also a decline the other.
Kind of like Joe Burrow a little bit. Joe Burrow was.
Yeah. Burrow threw 60, I think, is his last year, didn't he? When they won the national championship, something like that. Kenny's not going to throw 60. But the fact that his high watermark before the season was 13, he's already at 19 after only 5 games. He says something. But the critics are going to come out and say, well, he's played UMass. Okay, that was a big win. He played New Hampshire, an FCS team. That was a big win with a lot of yards. and a lot of points. They lost to a MAC team. You know, they beat Georgia Tech and they beat Georgia Tech and Tennessee. But a lot of the critics are yawning about that. Let's see them beat somebody good. So Virginia Tech is their next opponent, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night when Virginia Tech plays Notre Dame down there in Blacksburg. If Virginia Tech wins that game, Virginia Tech will be probably ranked, and to give Pitt a chance to really get itself a big marquee victory, get down there and win. But it's tough to win down there. They went only 2 years ago, they went down there to play Virginia Tech and lost 28-0. You know, it's hard to believe it. Only 2 years ago, Pitt was getting shut out, and now they're averaging 50 points a game. But a lot of that credit, guys, I believe, in my opinion, goes to Mark Whipple, the offensive coordinator. Is in his third year. He has a lot of NFL contact, a lot of NFL ideas, and he's been great for Kenny Pickett. They've been together for 3 years. And anytime you can have that kind of continuity with your quarterback and your quarterback coach and your offensive coordinator, you know, I think Pickett thinks like Whipple because they've been together for so long. I think that really helps. And one of the things that, you know, people have been criticizing Mark Whipple for is having Kenny come. If you watch the game, Kenny comes over, you know, to the sideline to get the call from Mark Whipple. They don't use any signs or anything like that, or guards coming in and out. He actually walks over to the sideline and he gets a little tip. Besides the play call, he gets a little tip from Whipple, and that's something that you know, a lot of good fans have criticized Whipple for, but it's worked. It's working this year because he's good. He sees things out there, and he passes that on to Kenny real quick. And Kenny's a sharp kid, and he uses that kind of information, and when the ball gets snapped.
One guy who has definitely benefited from the offense and some of the stats is wide receiver Jordan Addison. I mean, he's on pace to end up with like 18 touchdowns at this point, if not 20 touchdowns, the pace that he's on so far. How much talk has there been about him? Obviously, receivers are going to thrive when your quarterback's throwing for a bunch of yards, but those guys also have to make those plays as well, and Jordan Addison seems to be making a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of talk about Jordan Addison. Like I said, he was a freshman All-American last year, and he's a kind of kid. He's tough. You know, he catches the ball and he dives. Anybody can go out and catch a pass and get tackled after 10 yards. But Addison's the kind of guy who'll turn around. He may not fall over the defensive back, but he'll run around him, or he'll dive for extra yardage and fight for extra yardage. And that's what separates, you know, a good receiver from a great receiver. And, you know, Addison's only a sophomore. He's only halfway through the sophomore year. But you know, I think he has to be one of the better wide receivers in the country, maybe the best wide receiver in the ACC, because he has the best quarterback in the East. And it's hard to believe, with all the great quarterbacks, supposedly great quarterbacks, that were lining up to play in the ACC for the season. Kenny Pickett is better than all of them. And Addison's probably better than every wide receiver in the conference, maybe except for Justin Ross at Clemson. But Addison and Pickett are turning into combination, and not just with short passes, shooting the deep balls. Deep balls
One more thing, Jerry, I think we lost you there for a second. Someone asked me, because we have this show that has gone now coast to coast, we have a large contingent of West Virginia fans because of what happened back in late July with Oklahoma and Texas and the Big 12. And one of them asked me, how do you feel about West Virginia as a guy who covers Pitt?
Well, you know, I've covered a few games down there in Morgantown, and let's say down there. I've covered games in Morgantown, and I have a lot of respect for Neil Brown. I think he's a very good coach, and he's about a pretty average team. But they beat Virginia Tech, didn't they? I think they beat them early in the season, and they almost beat Oklahoma. So, yeah, I think there's an opportunity at West Virginia to be very good. And Neil Brown sort of built up the program after this sort of had a plateau with Dana Holgerson. But we'll see what happens when they come to Pittsburgh and when they play Pitt over the next 4 years. Starting next year, 2022, the backyard brawl of football for the first time since, I believe, 2011 was the last time those two teams played. They used to play every year. Now they're in separate conferences. They don't play at all, but there are 4-game series starting next year. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. So next year's 15 is going to be a lot different than this year's 15.
Yep, that'd be good to see that renewed as well. Thank you very much, Jerry. Appreciate your time on Kenny Pickett, Pitt Panthers. Narduzzi and what they're doing. In fact, Craig, you nailed it. Addison is amazing. Not a wide receiver at Pitt. Anything like that since Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I'll never forget going to College Station. Gosh, I forget what year it would have been. Probably, I mean, whatever Larry Fitzgerald's last year in college, everybody knows the game he had against A&M. Like, that's a legendary game that if you were paying attention back then to Larry Fitzgerald, you know about his performance in College Station that day. And it was random going there. And I think part of the reason me and my buddies went was because we had been hearing about this Larry Fitzgerald guy. And we're like, hey, let's go check it out, go to a game. And he almost single-handedly beat A&M, and Pitt won in College Station. And, you've seen what he's done ever since then. But, yeah, I mean, that's heavy praise to say the best since Larry. But, you think about it, and there's others obviously far more knowledgeable about Pitt football than I am. But you can't help be impressed by Addison. I mean, Pickett's going to get all the love because he's a quarterback, but it takes playmakers too, and Addison's definitely one.
That Larry Fitzgerald game was – I think I need to write I need to get an Aggie writer with me, and we can co-author a book on the games each year that ruined their hopes.
Yeah.
And that year was the Pitt game. That was a team A&M thought all right, this is a pretty good team. All right,
Yeah, my A&M buddy thought it was going to be. We're going to watch them win.
Yeah, going to roll over Pitt. There's Pitt. It's Pitt. They haven't been good since Dan Marino. Who cares about Pitt? And then Larry Fitzgerald came in there and just stomped him. I mean, he did.
Greatest, No, I remember I don't remember the exact details, but I remember. Was that with Nick? Is he go down there with Nick?
Yeah.
He had the greatest Pitt player ever, Tony Dorsett, Hugh Green in that conversation, and Marino. But I bet Marino would not win that poll. No, I think Dorsett and Green would probably win.
I think Larry's got to be up there too.
I was going to say, I think Larry Fitzgerald might be the best one, arguably. I mean, I know Marino would be hard to pass up, but the names that you just mentioned, as far as a fearsome foursome of your alumni, I mean, Dorsett and Marino and Fitzgerald and Hugh Green, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty stinking good.
Also, Mike Ditka, Bill Fralick.
Yeah, a lot more.
Mark May,
but
Craig Ironhead Hayward.
Fitzgerald's got to be near at the top of the list, in my opinion, along with Marino, obviously. But.
I just Googled it, the Bleacher Report. Of course, that doesn't mean they're the end all. They have Fitzgerald 8th. Behind again, some of those other guys were unbelievable. Ditka, we know, is in the Hall of Fame, and Bill Fralick was fantastic, All-American. Mark May, we know how good he was as well. It's fun to talk Pitt Panthers football, and a lot of you that are on the chat room on YouTube, Channel 365 Sports, some Pitt fans as well, and West Virginia fans all turned off the radio.
You know what I respect about Pitt is that in this era of wild uniform swings, I'm sure they've got their deal, but they're pretty much the uniforms that they're going to roll out with on Saturday
are white with gold with with blue, right?
They went backwards though. They went more towards their traditional with more of the yellowish gold than the old gold that they were wearing, because they had the panther on the side at one point, and then they reverted back to where it's the yellow helmet and Pitt script and whatever else.
I like the one with the Pitt script on the side.
I want the Johnny Majors, Dan Marino, Tony Dorsett, Hugh Green uniform.
Sometimes we overthink. Sometimes, and I know that, my God, Baylor went through that stretch where helmets were the biggest deal. And there's a thread every week on Sikkim365.com in the premium section about the uniforms, and then it brings, one thing or another, whether it's the whatever color that is, gold, although it doesn't look it, or now all green. I mean, it's amazing how some fan bases can get riled up over some of that as well. One other former Pitt Panther I had somebody tell me about, Marshall Goldberg, won back-to-back national titles. And also was second and finished third in the Heisman Trophy. He was a running back. I never heard of him. But, of course, I'm not a Pitt Panther historian other than the names we brought up as well.
Yeah, I mean, Pitt will throw an alternate out there that may not be the best, but they're yellow, blue, whatever shades they're supposed to be, gold and blue with the Pitt script, the gold helmets. Those are, and I think that's what they wore last weekend against for Georgia Tech maybe. But those are solid uniforms.
Why does nobody claim yellow as the color? Everybody who has it always says it's gold.
Yeah.
Nobody says it's yellow.
And then gold is, I guess, old gold is what that's supposed to be. I don't know. But yeah, it's never. Yeah, it's people have an issue with the color yellow. I guess I don't know, but. Pitt's an interesting team. I will say, he had kind of that caveat in there of, starting off but haven't really beat anybody, and starting off but haven't been able to finish. And then he reels off that schedule, and you're like, well, no wonder not everybody's celebrating a playoff berth yet, because there's a long way to go for Pitt. But great start with Pickett and Addison and others. You'll always have a chance to score some points, but I mean, we're about to see for real coming up over the next few weeks, and it'll be put up or shut up or whatever. But good to have some conversation about them.
When we come back,